Dr. Benjamin Alter. I am thrilled to be with you here today. It has been a long time coming for me. I must say that I've been putting this off, resisting, but I figure I've got to start somewhere. We've got to start somewhere, all of us do. And what better place than here and now? Let me tell you, here and now is a good place to start. That's what I think, at least. So here we are, episode 0 of the Alter Your Health podcast, which is your source of information and inspiration to support the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. So today, episode 0, we are creating the foundation. We're building this, relationship. And I've got to introduce myself, right? So I've got to give you a proper introduction. Who the heck am I? How the heck did I get to be here in front of you today in your earbuds or whatever, or on your computer screen or wherever we're connecting, which is incredible in and of itself that we're able to connect in these ways. So I'm going to introduce myself with none other than my beloved partner and new wife and partner in life, Susanna Alter, soon to be Dr. Susanna Alter. And we're going to share our healing journeys, how we came to be here today. So before we dive in, I just want to remind you and encourage you, wherever you might be connecting from, whether it's YouTube, iTunes, or whatever, give us a subscribe, a rate, and review of the podcast if you'd be so kind. That would be awesome. Totally awesome. And without further ado, I just want you to sit back, take a breath, exhale, and let it go. Here we go, episode 0, Alter Your Health. Alter Your Health podcast. I am Dr. Benjamin Alter, and I am here today with Susanna Alter, soon to be Dr. Susanna Alter, and newly Susanna Alter, my wife of 3 weeks now. We just got married a few weeks ago, and with our wedding, along with our marriage, comes the launch of a joint project, a joint business, and that is Alter Health, our health consultation business, where we offer naturopathic medicine to anyone and everyone, anywhere, everywhere. And the Alter Your Health podcast, that's a little bit of, it's my little project, and it's an opportunity for me to step into something new and share myself with authenticity and with vulnerability. And the intention of this podcast is to educate and inspire, but also stretch myself into new ways of being, and connect with different people who are, experts in various fields, and also, anyone well experienced with some sort of niche of medicine or healing or living, someone who I would like to connect with and have an in-depth and intimate conversation with for the benefit of myself and also anyone and everyone out there who cares to listen. So that's kind of Alter Your Health podcast. That's kind of the intention of it. And today is episode 0. And episode 0 means that we are just really setting the stage, sharing who I am and, also who Susanna is, who's not the host, but my support, my moral support, especially here today, where I'm a little bit anxious and excited about.
Oh, you're doing great, Ben.
About, stepping into this new role, sharing my voice anyone who's listening who doesn't know me or who does know me probably knows me as being kind of a quiet, reserved kind of person. But the truth is, I am that. And I am wanting to step into more, sharing my voice because there's a lot that I have to share. There is. And I've always been the kind of person who sits in the back of the class wanting to raise my hand and share my perspective and my thoughts and kind of, certainly stir the pot. Certainly, I like to go with the flow, but I also like to question the flow.
You like to make some waves.
I like to make waves. And because I think it's fun, and I think that's how the world evolves, with waves and with new ideas. I've always kind of lived by and resonated with the quote of Albert Einstein, which goes something like, I probably will be, messing up a few of the words, but it's something along the lines of problems cannot be resolved from the level of consciousness from which they were created. So if we think about all the problems, we like to use that word problem, I think it's kind of a downer kind of word, but issues or opportunities in the world, there's plenty of issues and opportunities in the world. And I think sometimes we need to change the way we're looking at these things in order to find the real meaningful and sustainable solutions that we seek. So that's kind of what this is about.
Yeah.
and I'm already going on and on and on and on without any real aim or direction. But like I said already, this is episode 0. So we're setting the stage, and part of that is sharing my story and our story. So I wanted to get into who I am and how I came to be here today. And, the story could be 10 seconds or 30 seconds, or it could be like a saga of like a year. And so we're going to go somewhere in the middle and maybe, try to keep it to an hour or less. And we'll get to the point, and we'll get to the point. Stay on point. All right. Anything else you wanted to share before I dive into who I am, Susanna?
Nothing. No, nothing to share. Just curious to hear your inspiration. Why don't you share your story of how you came to find naturopathic medicine and
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I think, what I feel called to share first is that things change in my consciousness and in my being so quickly. It's like if we were to have this conversation a week ago, it would be probably totally different. And if we were to wait, a couple weeks to have the conversation, it would also, it would be totally, totally different. Like catching, I think it goes for everybody, right? Like catching who we are, mind, body, and spirit and physical, who we are in the conglomerate of our multidimensional nature in any moment. It's just like a snapshot. So in this snapshot, looking back on how I came to be here, it really, well, we were talking before, about the inspiration to pursue medicine and healing. And I always tie it back to the experience. I think it was in 7th grade when I broke my wrist skateboarding as a skater kid, jumping down the stairs on my skateboard and like getting into trouble and all that kind of stuff that skaters do. But the biggest trouble I got into was breaking my wrist. And that there's probably, if you skateboard long enough, you're going to break a wrist. I mean, gosh, look at those guys. But anyway, my broken wrist led me to the emergency room. I saw this orthopedic surgeon, this big burly guy who was really joyful and, good energy, had a lot of vibrancy, came into the hospital room and took a look at my wrist that was hanging there, and it was in like a traction, and he put his big hands around my wrist and just squeezed, and it was like, there were pops and cracks, and I like probably screamed. And he was reducing the fracture, and then he, of course, splinted me up or put the cast on me, and set me on my way. And I thought, wow, that was pretty cool what that guy just did, And I was really seeing it all from a mechanical, physical, kind of mechanistic view of, like, wow, like I'm this really complicated machine, and he just like put some things together, and now I'm gonna be like healed and good as new. And I thought, wow, that was pretty cool. I think I could do that. And from that point forward, I was really interested in the mechanics of the human body, and I put myself and took advantage of various opportunities to actually observe different surgical procedures, getting into the operating room and observing hip replacements, knee replacements, and all kinds of crazy stuff that I thought it was awesome. And honestly, it's so crazy because, 15 years later or whatever, looking back on that, I don't think I could be in an operating room like that anymore. Like, yeah, I think I'm much more sensitive to the blood and guts and the pain, and maybe I've become more empathic or sensitive in some ways. But anyways, in those years, high school, college, I was into it, and that's what I wanted to do, and I was sure of it, and I was, pre-med. I loved physiology, anatomy, took advantage of all those opportunities. Yeah, college was fun. And really one of the things that I got into when I was in college was riding bikes. And in my last year of college, I was mountain biking in the Tucson Mountains. I went to the University of Arizona. Go Wildcats. But I was mountain biking in the Tucson Mountains and flew over my handlebars onto some crazy rocks and just like slammed my wrist again. And I was thinking, I'm not sure if it was my left or my right wrist that I broke when I was in 7th grade, but this was my right wrist that my whole body just came crashing down onto my right hand, and I shattered my trapezium, which is the bone in the wrist that articulates with the thumb. And I, went to the emergency room again. And this time I had to see a surgeon, a proper surgeon with the scalpel and everything. And he needed to cut me open and put some pins into this bone. And still I was in this place of like, wow, this is super cool. And actually when in that surgical procedure, it was my right arm that was, or my right wrist, and what they did was they gave me what's called a nerve block, where they pretty much just numb up my whole right arm as if it's, and it's like as if I didn't even have a right arm. It was just dead. But they, numbed up my whole right arm, and they gave me some medication to kind of just make me chill out. I forget exactly what it was, but I was chill with a numb right arm, and I was watching this whole surgical procedure. They were digging in and putting pins in my bone, and I was right there with it. And like I said, I was a senior in my last year in college, and on this pre-med route, wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. So I was like, I thought I was loving it. I thought it was the coolest thing. And I thought this surgeon was like doing a great job. And, I loved the connection that I made with this guy. And then at the end of this, procedure, like as I was or maybe it was like the first follow-up appointment or something, he was talking to me, or no, this was before the surgery. He was talking to me like, oh yeah, you'll be fine, but probably 10 or 20 years down the road, in your 30s or 40s or whatever, you'll probably develop some level of arthritis in that thumb joint. And, no big deal. Everyone gets arthritis. And I was like, wait, no, this is a big deal. I don't want arthritis, especially in my right thumb. I'm this right-handed dexterous guy, and I want to be a surgeon like you. I want to like cut into people and use my dexterity to like fix people. And it definitely shook me and shocked me. And nevertheless, had the surgery, healed up just fine. But in that, I think it was like right the day after the surgery, I was, still on painkillers and healing. And I just had this inspiration. I have no idea where it came from, but it was totally outside of myself, or so it seemed, because I drove myself to, or walked or something, to the art supply store and picked up paints, paintbrushes, and canvases. And I just started painting with my left hand on, like, with paint and paintbrushes on the canvas, left hand. And it was just like, it started as this really kind of abstract, just like expression. And
is that what we have on our wall?
Yeah, there's some of them survived to this day, and 10 years later. And yeah, so I was painting, and this I don't know if it was the breaking of the right hand or the painting or the both, or I don't know what it was, but I was led to experience this total cerebral rewiring of my brain and my whole being. And, up until that point, I had been so right hand dominant, used my right hand for everything with, I was very, very right-handed, and also very, very left-brained, analytical, scientific, rational sort of thinking. And really that all got changed. Like in that moment, my right brain was turned on as my left hand was put to work. And I don't use this term much at all, but it was really like in this, a moment in this awakening sort of experience for me where I was someone completely new. I was experiencing someone completely new. And I always say that up until that point, I really wasn't myself. I didn't feel like I was living my life. I felt like I was living a life that I thought was the life I should be living, but it wasn't really a authentically inspired life. But from that point forward, life became more authentically inspired. And I kind of got on purpose, aligned with, you know, what I think what I'm supposed to be doing in this life. And that's ultimately, you know, skip a few chapters, healing on more of a holistic level, more than just pins and needles and, you know, screws, mechanics. But, you know, the mind, the body, the emotion, the spirit. Yeah. So that was a long-winded first chapter. But, no.
Yeah, and do you want to talk a bit about just kind of your education, your training after, after that kind of awakening you had? Just your background so that everyone kind of knows who you are, what you do.
Yeah, I guess if you listen to that story, you think, oh, well, this guy's just some like dude who doesn't know how to ride a mountain bike. But yeah, after that, you know, I graduated from college and had this opportunity to move to Hungary, where I worked on a research project studying the genetics of brain tumors, and lived in eastern Hungary in a city called Debrecen for about 8 months, where I worked on this research project. And that was, you know, that next chapter was this continual unfolding of, I guess, the impetus of what started when I flew over the handlebars. And so when I was living in Hungary, I was very alone, isolated. I was very, you know, I was in a new culture, new language, new everything, and it was very impermanent for me. I knew I was only going to be there for what seemed like, I mean, it was like 7 months, but it, you know, obviously seemed like forever. But I didn't, you know, the end was always in sight, so I never really felt like I wanted to or needed to really integrate into society. I mean, the language barriers was difficult in and of itself, but I'd never been the kind of person to just be able to make good friends off, you know, real quick. So anyways, that led me to being kind of a hermit for that time. And I spent a lot of time with myself, and there was a lot of, you know, self-awareness, new insights about who I am, and that ultimately were, you know, birthed from that experience. But it was challenging, and some of the challenges involved my own physical health. I guess, you know, physical and mental health, and but physically, I was just constantly in this state of lethargy and fatigue. And there were also experiences of, you know, more physical symptoms, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Just like waves would hit me and knock me down for a day or two. And it was all very interesting because I would also take advantage of traveling opportunities to, you know, get on a train for a weekend and go to surrounding countries, you know, Romania, Czech Republic, Austria, Germany, and places in Eastern Europe. And when I was traveling, when I was outside of, you know, my little cave in Hungary that I had created for myself, I felt permission to be someone that I wasn't. Like, I felt permission to, I don't know, like I was in these new places with new people. No one knew who the heck I was. I could just be whoever the heck I wanted to be in that moment. And that's not to say I was instantly super gregarious and outgoing and crazy in, any ways like that, but I just felt this weight lifted that allowed me to relax into being someone new. And when I came back to Hungary, back into this more familiar setting, everything would contract, and it happened probably like 4 or 5 times where I pretty instantaneously I would get, a wave of this illness, a wave of fatigue, nausea, vomiting, and
Like right when you were coming back.
yeah, I mean, literally I can think and feel and see it all happening when I was on a train, when I would be on a train, like approaching my stop to get off. And I would just everything would just I'd just get hit with that wave. And it happened many times. And I thought, man, I must have just been like partying too much. I must have eaten something bad. I must have not been taking care of myself well enough when I was traveling. But after it happened, like 4 or 5 times or whatever, I realized, I had this insight that this is nothing physical. This is, why I was feeling bad had nothing to do with what I was doing to myself physically. It was really, really, really all in my head. It was all my state of mind, the state of my thinking. And that awareness, looking back upon it, it was very empowering. I felt very empowered in that moment to change my thinking. Like, wow, I'm perfectly physically well. I'm perfectly physically well. I knew that physically, but my mind, I mean, the words to describe how I was feeling, are kind of like homesickness or loneliness. But I knew that physically I was well, and knowing that allowed me to kind of take a step up or a step back and start working in consciousness, working in my mind a little bit. Because if I was physically well, then all I needed to be was mentally well. And what that meant for me in that moment, and what I would probably do today, would be the same. I started meditating, and I started just sitting with myself, sitting with my thoughts, and also, just being a neutral, loving observer of my thoughts. But on top of that, I started to kind of input new thoughts. I started to I wasn't even familiar with the terms of, positive thinking or affirmations or anything like that. But I started, just affirming to myself that I am healthy, I'm well. And I would do, I cultivated, this daily practice of meditation and inward affirmations, and I started feeling better. And then when I would continue to go on these weekend excursions, get away, explore, and when I would come back, I would feel healthy. And I knew I had figured something out. I knew I had tapped into something special and meaningful. And really, I knew I had tapped into something that I was going to be doing with my life because it was so enriching and empowering. And I wanted to kind of share that. And at that point in time, all I knew in the field of health and medicine was the conventional system that existed. And I graduated from the University of Arizona. I took this time off to live and study in Hungary. And I knew that I was going to go back and go to medical school and, put myself in one of these, integrative medicine, mind-body medicine kind of programs after, of course, 4 years of medical school. And that's the track that I saw in that moment. And I was really excited. I started reading all sorts of good stuff, started, just diving into consciousness, deeper and deeper, and all while, maintaining my meditation practice. And yeah, my time in Europe and Hungary wrapped up, and I moved back. And I forget, the specific timing around it, when, what month it was or whatever. But I was faced with another gap year, another year before I was going to, apply to medical school. And so I was kind of trying to figure out how I was going to fill this next gap year, because I had, just missed the wave of medical school applications. And my mother had recently completed a spiritual psychology program at the University of Santa Monica. And I didn't know much about this program. My mom didn't share with me much as she was going through it. At least I can't really recall too much now. But she invited me and the rest of the family to attend a workshop at this school that summer. I guess it was 2012 or 2011, or maybe 2011. And me, my sister, my stepfather, my mom, we all attended this workshop at the University of Santa Monica. It was the first time they were offering this workshop. It was called Loyalty to Your Soul. And I was like, yeah, sure. My mom was paying for me to go, and I'll check it out. I was just opening to kind of what this idea of self-healing, self-study. I was just opening to it. So I showed up at this workshop, and hey, I thought it was pretty cool, cool people. It was a little bit out there, like fringy for me. A little, everyone was a little bit further than I was, or so it seemed. But I did enjoy kind of tapping into, my inner being a little bit. And after that workshop, I was still thinking, what the heck am I doing? Like with the rest of this year, what the heck am I going to do? Get a job, try to, I had no idea. Excuse me. But anyways, this program at the University of Santa Monica, they were starting another class in spiritual psychology, a master's program, which was a 2-year program. And I thought, well, I know it's a 2-year program, but I'll just do like the first year of it, because it's like, it's not an accredited program. It didn't even really mean much to complete the 2-year master's program. So I was like, I'll just do 1 year and get what I get out of it. And so I enrolled, signed up, showed up, went through this program the first year. In the program, it must have been the first or second weekend early on. It was a program that met 1 weekend a month over the course of 2 years. And Susanna, you did a similar program, and we'll get to that. But anyways, in the first year of the program, I connected with a naturopathic doctor. And I call her my naturopathic angel. Because she really showed me that there was another route, another possibility to get to, so to speak, where I wanted to go in terms of education and credentials and that whole thing. And she encouraged me to check out Bastyr, or National College of Natural Medicine, up in the Northwest. And I did. I checked both of those schools out, and I went to National College, now National University of Natural Medicine. showed up. Well, back up a little bit. I ended up completing the 2-year program because I kind of got hooked.
And you added a third year too.
Yeah. So I completed the 2-year program in spiritual psychology in the master's program. Right after that, moved up to Portland, Oregon to start naturopathic medical school. And during my first year in Portland at naturopathic medical school, there was a third year at the University of Santa Monica in studying what they call consciousness, health, and healing. So I enrolled in that program as well and flew down from Portland to Santa Monica 1 weekend a month for my first year of medical school to do these programs concurrently. And yeah, so 4 years after that, graduated from naturopathic medical school. And now, holy smokes, I mean, here I am. Like, that's, obviously a quick, so to speak, flyby of who I am here, how I am. But I think, how I want to kind of sum up I'll call it my educational life, the life that had, or the aspects of my life that have provided the core curriculum of my education, including, undergrad. I'd put Hungary in there, and, University of Santa Monica, and what is it? And UNM. I forgot about that one. There's all sorts of other training and credentials that have been sprinkled in along the way. But that core education, like it's like, it has penetrated into all of who I am, especially, well, no, everything. But my work at the University of Santa Monica, I mean, not a moment goes by where that's not part of who I am. And similarly, while at, NUNM, National University of Natural Medicine, I think that I really bit hard onto the philosophy of naturopathic medicine and this. I mean, I remember that class, or it was, I think, the philosophy of naturopathic medicine was the name of the class. And, today there's functional medicine, there's, Chinese medicine, and there's Ayurveda. Like, there's all these different kind of schools of natural medicine, or healing. But I really resonated with the core philosophy of naturopathic medicine, and it really made its way into who I am and what I do. And really what that is that the body is healing itself, right? Like every single ticking second of each and every day, the body is healing itself. And that's what physiology is. It's the process of the body healing itself. And that's what each and every symptom of pathology is. It's the body doing its best to heal itself. So as we understand how the body ticks, we can understand how to kind of just subtly fine-tune these physiologic processes that are healing.
Yeah. Well said.
So that's who I am, so to speak, a little bit at least for now. And yeah, we've been recording for 37 minutes. Whoa. So I'm just gonna press pause on my story. I know that there will be opportunities to fill in the gaps in future episodes in conversation with other people, but I want to change the focus if I can, Susanna.
No. I'm gonna start blushing.
Well, if for those of you watch or listening to the podcast, you can't see the blush, but if we get this video out there, you might be blushing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to first and foremost give everybody a break from listening to my voice. And
It's a great voice and a great story from a great guy.
And well, thank you. And I want to give Susanna just an opportunity. You know, she's not the host of the Alter Your Health podcast, but she's my partner in so many ways. And she has, I mean, I feel like I know your story, but obviously only from my perspective. And I invite you to share from your perspective how you have come to arrive.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for asking. I will try to make my story brief. And gosh, where to start? I think I'll start.
Let me know if you want me to like poke or prod or like
You can poke and prod as much as you want.
or not poke and prod, but like remind you or like guide you.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, I think, I'll start when I was in college. So I went to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and
I just want to back up.
Yeah.
Is this how did you? I'll just start. Start with the leading
What are
question.
we talking about?
I'll start with a lead, just like a leading question. Like,
okay.
Like why did you become a naturopathic doctor?
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. I thought that was the story I'd be sharing. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think it starts when I was in college in Colorado, and I was always a really active person, loved exercise. In Colorado, I got really into rock climbing and trail running and mountain biking and gosh, everything you could do outside. And I really got into yoga. And so I signed up for a teacher training program, and as I learned more about the kind of philosophy of yoga, I got really interested in Eastern religion. And I knew that we had this great religion program at my school, so I decided to take an Intro to Buddhism course. And it was in that course where I had an assignment to write a final paper, and I chose to write on basically the therapeutic power of meditation, of Buddhist meditation. And I started looking into Jon Kabat-Zinn and all of the kind of mindfulness-based stress reduction literature that's out there. And I just thought, wow, how cool is this? That, it's the first time I ever really heard about the physical benefits of practicing meditation. And so that just kind of opened up my awareness to also the physical benefits of practicing yoga that extend beyond, the actual stretching and strengthening of yoga. And so, during that whole time, I actually had this crazy experience. You described that kind of moment of insight you had when it felt like it was some kind of source outside of yourself giving you a message to start painting. When I was sitting in one of my teacher training group meditations, we were all sitting and oming. It was an om circle, and om, and amidst all the oming, just like a flash of lightning, didn't know where it came from, but I had this clear as day knowing that after, when I go home tonight, I am going to apply for a leave of absence. I'm going to take a quarter off or a semester off of college, and I'm going to travel to South Asia. And so I went home from that class, and I found a program where I would go study in Nepal for the next quarter, and I did that. I did just that. And so I went to Nepal. I lived with the host family there. I studied yoga. I apprenticed with a yoga teacher. I learned about all the Eastern religions. And in that moment, I realized that I was so interested in Eastern religion, and I decided to major in it when I returned back to Colorado. I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details of my time in Nepal. It was definitely a challenging and growing time for me, but yeah, I don't think
if you could like sum up how and why it was such a challenging and growing time, and then what the result of the time was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like you and your experience in Hungary, actually, I got really sick when I was in Nepal. I had just kind of like stomach bug after stomach bug, and had some weird skin infections, chronic sinus infections. And it was really, really humbling to me, because I had always kind of prided myself for being this really strong, active, like mountain climbing girl. That was like really part of my identity that I clung on to. And so here I was like losing weight, feeling very weak, feeling very like, I don't know, just useless and hopeless, and having to ask for so much help, which I wasn't really used to. And I feel like it just really stripped away everything I knew about myself. It was honestly one of those moments like, gosh, without rock climbing, without my physical strength, like, who am I? And and you know, in one of my horrible episodes of kind of just like laying on the floor, just trying to recover from one of my stomach bugs, and kind of integrating everything that I had been learning through the yoga philosophy, I just kind of realized like, oh my gosh, you know, doesn't matter all this, like all the exterior kind of images that I cling on to. You know, at the core, I'm really still me, and that's what's most important. And so, yeah, it was just kind of this realization of how kind of impermanent outside, like the exterior is. And I'm for some reason not finding the word I want to use, but
attachments.
Yeah,
physical world attachments.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and so I went back to Colorado feeling like a new person for sure, and feeling very excited and clear on my decision to study religion, and definitely most interested in Eastern religion. And so as I continued my studies there, I created an independent study looking at the basically the role of spirituality and religion within healthcare, and kind of looking at the mind-body connection. And so it led me to read a lot of books written by doctors, and I was very interested in everything they're talking about just kind of their anecdotal experience with seeing how people who really connect with their emotions and their mental state and their spirituality have these great health outcomes.
Can you think of any of like your favorite books on those topics that you read during that time?
I read The Heart Speaks by Mimi Guarneri. I really liked that one. I read a lot of books written by the Dalai Lama. that were great, where he talked about physical health. And Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. I read so many books during that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But really a broad scope. Those were the main ones I really remember reading. And another good one, with the tiger on the cover. Peter Levine. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry, Peter Levine. It's probably up there on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then I went on to write a thesis on that topic, and yeah, it's funny because I was really interested in what these doctors were doing, but I never saw myself in the role of being a doctor.
When did that change?
That changed.
Dr. Susanna.
Yeah. So, my senior year, in the midst of writing my thesis on this topic, I actually got really sick in a different way than I was in Nepal. It started with a foot injury, which I thought was just from overuse from running and everything. But it was in both feet, which is kind of rare. And then slowly, I was developing joint pain in pretty much every joint in my body. And as a 21-year-old, this was definitely kind of scary. And then as that progressed, things just kind of started falling apart with the fatigue every day, just kind of feeling really overwhelmed, definitely higher anxiety than I'd ever felt, acne, which I hadn't had since like 8th grade, kind of this mystery illness. And I would go to the doctors and they would prescribe, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, which didn't really help. And yeah, it was definitely really scary for me. And it got to the point where I had to take time off from school, and I went to go live with my parents. And, I really just prioritized my health at that time. And we went from doctor to doctor, specialist to specialist. And through all of the testing that they did, they found nothing abnormal. I'm sure some of those doctors thought it was all in my head. But yeah, and meanwhile, I was just kind of getting worse and worse. It sounds dramatic, but at one point, I was actually being pushed around in a wheelchair, not because I couldn't walk, but just because it was so painful to walk. And yeah, so that was my lowest point for sure. But at the time, I was practicing really kind of like yin yoga and receiving massage from a yoga teacher just as kind of palliative care. And he said, I know you're feeling very hopeless at this point, but I want you to go visit one more doctor. And I mean, at that point, I had almost accepted like that I was just going to be a sick person for the rest of my life. Wow. So I was like, whatever, sure, can't hurt. And so I go to this doctor, who's a cardiologist.
You don't need to mention that.
Yeah. But I just thought I feel like my heart is the one thing that's still working okay in my body. But yeah, I went to this cardiologist, and it was the first time a doctor had sat down with me and listened to my full story. And I think he was probably listening for 90 minutes, asking really great questions. And he said, all right, I think I've got something that can help you, and it's not a medication. And so he gave me a therapeutic diet to follow, and just a few supplements, like 1 or 2 really, wasn't over the top. And gosh, I left that office just feeling so filled up with hope. Like something in my head was just clicked, like, of course, food and diet is the answer. And so...
But up until that time, it had never been addressed.
No, it hadn't been talked about at all in any of my visits. And I always thought I ate, in a healthy way, but yeah, this doctor definitely had more to offer. And so, yeah, I'd say within 2 weeks, my pain level decreased like 80%.
Wow.
And that really was just kind of the beginning of my healing. But in that moment, what it did was it just opened my eyes to how powerful food can be in healing. And
what I also hear is that, you were given hope. Like, I don't know how it's hard to transmit, and prescribe hope, but I think a good practitioner does that.
Yeah. The therapeutic relationship in itself of just having, someone sit down and listen to my story, that for me was huge.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, like I said, that was kind of just the beginning of the healing. Pain was certainly decreased, but it definitely took me a while to feel like I was back to my normal self.
Then you went to naturopathic medical school.
Yeah. So, yep. I went back to Colorado College. I graduated, and
So did you just have did it just hit you like, oh, I could do this?
I
need to do this?
It was slow. I will try to not make this very long to describe, but when I went back to Colorado, I felt like I still needed more support, and it was actually a holistic nutritionist who I started, Vivian, very near and dear to my heart.
I know Vivian.
Vivian worked with me on the physical nutrition, but also mental, emotional, spiritual levels. And after working with her for 1 or 2 visits, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And everything just kind of clicked in my head, like, wow, kind of, like your accidents, all of this that's happened, to get me to this point. Because at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life.
Yeah, we truly are guided, even when we're not asked to be guided. And sometimes the guidance is felt and received, and we listen. Sometimes it's clear.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're in a state open to it, the clarity, and sometimes we're not. And sometimes traumatic things traumatic, they feel and look and seem traumatic, come in and redirect. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I started looking into holistic nutrition programs and came across Bastier's website, and I kept seeing the word naturopathic medicine pop up everywhere on the website, and so I looked into what naturopathic medicine was, and I decided, hey, why limit myself to nutrition? I want a solid medical foundation. I want to learn all about the body that I possibly can.
Yeah.
So, I committed myself to the 5 years of medical school.
Yeah, Susanna took the scenic route. I took the 4-year direct path.
Yeah.
Which, for me, it's funny because for me, I felt I was ready to be done. I obviously wasn't really ready, but there were parts of me that was ready to be done with medical school after the first quarter. I was just I get it. I get it. Just give me what I need to know. And obviously it doesn't work that way. But yeah, I really acknowledge you for persevering. And you've always been the kind of person who slow and steady, methodical, make sure it's all as you're getting as much as you can to the greatest depths possible. So, yeah, I always acknowledge you for that.
Oh, thanks. And I'm almost there.
Almost there.
Yeah, 3 months away.
Yeah, as it stands today, less than 3 months away. Who knows when this will be launched into the world, this podcast, episode 0.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see. Anything else about, let's see. I feel like I kind of jumped in. But so you went back to college. You had to do your prereqs. I mean,
yeah.
So it was like a 5 years in medical school, but it was really at least 6 because from the time like a year of prerequisites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a year of prereqs. But yeah, I guess I just like to summarize with. I think it's really cool. I see a lot of similarities in our stories. Like my story is my story and your story is your story. Mm-hmm. However, just having kind of similar challenges with physical health, which kind of opened our minds to all the other dimensions involved with health and
and when we met, which was both of our second year, or we met at the beginning of medical school, but when we started dating our second year, I started sharing my story a little bit with you and my background with spiritual psychology study, and like you were lit up again.
Yeah.
And when was it that you signed up for that program?
That program, it was the end of my second year. Our second year. So
during the third year.
Mm-hmm.
During third year of medical school, which is not like a walk in the park, you were flying down to Santa Monica once a month.
Yeah.
And you did the first year of, essentially it was like the first year of my program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it had changed at that point. They had dropped the master's program and same kind of curriculum, just I guess with different intention, different credentials.
It's funny because I think back to that and I don't remember for my experience, it was like all of a sudden you told me, you're like, I signed up for this. It was never a conversation like, oh, I'm really interested in this, Ben. Like, do you think, like, what do you think? And I'm like, I'm definitely happy that you signed up and hopped in. And I'm actually also, it's probably a good thing you didn't ask me like what I think, because I probably would have tried to question you or talk you out of it, just because the commitment to fly down and stretch yourself between 2 states, 2 graduate level programs at the same time. It's like a big stretch, but
yeah. No, I think I do that sometimes when I like know 100% within myself that I want to do something. I won't share it with someone because it's like I don't want anyone else's opinion. I know I'm going to do this.
Yeah, so. No, I'm kind of the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I always appreciate feedback, and like I want people to agree with what I want to do. I want to feel and receive the feedback and affirmative words and recognition from people who are around me.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's true. If there is something that's like so clear, it's like, no, this is what I'm doing. No one's going to talk me out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But I know we're probably running out of time.
Oh, I kind of set the kind of 1 hour limit, but we'll just flow with it.
Well, I'm inspired. I want to talk about Ben and I recently had a synastry astrology reading.
Well, we can skim the surface here, but
I want to talk about the Aquarius.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We won't go into the all the details, but the sun sign of our synastry reading, which is like, the sun is kind of like the core essence of our relationship. It was within Aquarius, and it was within like the house of, it was like healing and education, and I just thought it was so perfect, the way it was described to us. And I'm no astrologer, so if any of you out there are and I'm making mistakes with my words, please forgive me. But
we will have an astrologer on the podcast in the future, by the way, so stay tuned.
That's true. But I thought it was so cool how he described how the sun in Aquarius, within this house in particular, is showing how kind of the two of us together are, it's like we're out there, we're out here in the open for a cause. And like Ben said earlier, Ben's not afraid to make waves. That's just kind of who he is.
Yeah.
I'm a little timid.
I'm a little, like, it's funny. I mean, I feel kind of weird saying this, but I'm the kind of person that feels more comfortable. I guess we all are, like, on the internet, for example, like, the trolls who troll through the internet and just like kind of like make comments that stir the pot. Like, everyone's comfortable doing that sort of thing, and so am I. I mean, I respectfully troll. I respectfully troll the internet sometimes, but I'm thinking, like, in the physical world, like in a class, like I was saying before, I'll sit in the back and like I'll wanna like raise my hand, and it's funny because oftentimes, I don't know about anyone else out there, but when I feel called and inspired to raise my hands or speak up in any way, I get this surge of hormones and heat, and it's just like, ugh, and like, my throat gets all swollen. And so I guess that's a familiar thing for you as well.
Oh, okay. Totally. Yeah.
So I feel that, but rarely do I take the impetus further to raise my hand or to open my mouth. So I guess what I'm getting at here is I want to allow that impetus to fully come through, and in a loving, compassionate, respectful, kind of way, not just like speaking up. Like,
totally.
like,
Yeah,
blah,
definitely.
Blah, blah, blah,
No, and yeah, like for the with the intention of inspiring positive change in the world.
That, and another one of I think my messages and kind of the theme of the podcast, which is kind of maybe good to wrap up with, is just this idea of truth. It's like, what the heck is true nowadays? And I'm a seeker of truth, and like to the greatest level. I mean, I think we all are. But that really guides like everything that I do and everything that I create. It's really, wanting to know the truth, and the reason why I feel so like it's so important in today's world, like here and now, is because I feel like the more information that's created into the world, the further we get from the truth. And the reason why is because we just have to dig and sort through stuff and use our inner guidance to connect with the truth. And it's like it gets more and more muddied and confused as there's more information. So I love information, but I think as more information comes to be created and shared into the world, we each individually have a responsibility to heighten our truth detector or, you know, kind of radar to resonate with what's real and true. And, yeah. And another point on that. What was I gonna say, or how can I say this? I think that an interesting thing about the truth also is that it's not, in most every case, the truth is not a point. It's not a definitively defined point in space or time, because as everything evolves and shifts, and, you know, we're in this fluid world, this dynamic world where everything is totally evolving, because that's the nature of life, is to evolve. So as we all evolve, so does our perception of truth. And I think we also need to be open to flow with that. It's like the truth is a moving target, and we are moving ourselves. So we need to be really on our game. I think, you know, we need to be active members of society in this way of, like, you know, seeking and speaking and sharing truth. So, a little truth talk. Anything else, Susanna?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just gonna talk a bit more about the Aquarius before you took it in a different direction. But I feel like it's also maybe a good place to kind of wrap it up, because what I wanted to say with it, which is you know, this sign, this sun sign in Aquarius in this particular house is the way he worded it was, you know, we're being kind of unapologetically, like, speaking our truth and just, like, being out there in the world. And I feel as though we both felt so strongly that this is just such a great representation of our relationship and how we feel about our work in the world. And we ended up incorporating it into the logo of Alter Health. If you can kind of look at it and see, you got the little Aquarius waves in the sun. And I feel like this podcast is such a great way to just really support, you know, our role and your role, because it's more your podcast, but just in, you know, conveying that truth and speaking with other individuals who are...
Yeah, alter your health. We are altering your health, our health. But yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. It's funny because when I reflect back on our astrology synastry, that's not what I hold more in my head from that time was our, you know, the other part of the chart, the Capricorn and the fourth house stuff, which, you know, we don't have to get into it here, but yeah.
There might be a lot of babies on the way, apparently.
Or, well, maybe like physical human babies, but also like creative, like, you know, projects babies.
Exactly.
This being one of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, it goes without saying that the Alter Your Health podcast is really also about, like, you, the listener out there. Because I've, like, whenever, and I think that a lot of healthcare providers, and just humans in general in today's world, like, we're all healers. Like, we all hold the role of healer in our world and in our life. And if we don't, then we better, you know, step up and awaken to that responsibility as a human. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I think I was, in my third year of medical school, I was a secondary in the clinic when I was talking with a patient. I think, it came out of my mouth, like you, just talking with the patient, like you are the healer here, because we were talking about more lifestyle oriented medicine. And the patient kind of chuckled, like, no, like I'm coming to the doctor. You're the healer. I'm the patient. And I was like, wow, that is such an old and outdated model. Not that there's really anything inherently wrong with it, but when it comes to really showing up in the fullest sense of, in health to the fullest level, which, we will in future episodes dive into what the heck does health even mean. But when it comes to that, that is an individually defined responsibility by each and every human being. And so this podcast is about equipping the listener with the tools, the resources to step into that role to the greatest capacity. Because, we kind of came up with this slogan that, I don't know, I guess I did come up with it, that, information plus inspiration equals transformation. And I think we all are transforming, whether we are doing so consciously or not, with, that transformation. And I think transformation and evolution kind of go hand in hand, as does healing, as does loving. It's all kind of one and the same. But in order to do so, any of those things, healing, transforming, evolving, which is the nature of life, in order to do so, we need to be equipped with the information required, especially in today's world, as we were talking about the truth dilemma. And so we need the information, and we also need a little inspiration, especially in today's world, because things are kind of like, if you look in the right place, they'll look pretty dark. So you gotta figure out, we have to figure out how to maintain our eyes on the light, be inspired, surround ourselves with loved ones, people who uplift and bring out our best qualities, our best characteristics, people who nourish us in ways that allow us to bring our best foot forward. So, without any more breath wasted on this day, I think we'll wrap up episode 0. It only took 76 minutes, 1 hour and 16 minutes, but thank you for being with us. And we're so excited and thrilled to dive into all things consciousness, health, healing, growing, evolving as we move into the future. Episode 0 over and out.